Welcome to The Meet. Today we are meeting photographer Mark Houde, whose work explores the beauty of landscapes and aerial imagery. Through his YouTube channel, he invites viewers into the craft of photography with tutorials on Lightroom, composition, and the art of visual storytelling through nature. Welcome to The Meet, Mark.
Thanks, Josiah, and thanks for having me.
Mark, can you take us back to the moment where you first knew you wanted to become a photographer?
When I first started, I had no intentions of being a full-time photographer. In fact, I had majored in music as a guitarist. But I eventually, the scales tilted and I found myself enjoying photography more than I did music. The beauty about where I'm at now is that all the music experience comes in so handy in the video editing process. So that really comes in handy when I'm putting these videos together with music and sound effects and such. My photography idol is Ansel Adams, who's known for his work in Yosemite National Park, where he majored in music as a concert pianist. And then he ended up being a photographer as well. And I'm in no means comparing myself to Ansel Adams, but it was very inspiring.
How has your relationship with the craft shifted or deepened since the beginning?
I wanted to visually chronicle my daughter's life growing up, and so a camera was always in reach. But it wasn't so much about the artistic part of photography. It was more about just capturing those moments, which too is important in photography. But it wasn't until afterwards that I really got into the artistic aspect of photography. It's probably about 15 years ago. I was doing a website for Gouveia Vineyards up here in town, and I had never done product photography before. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to need a better camera. So perfect excuse to go buy more equipment, right? Just saying.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, after that project, I just started thinking to myself, I've been doing photography for a very long time, but I've never really considered how much I've enjoyed the process of it. How have I not sort of exercised the artistic aspect of it? It was at that point, especially after buying the new camera, that I really started getting serious into the landscape photography, and that was sort of the beginning of me getting really serious about it.
I know you've done a lot of aerial photography in your work. Can you touch on how drones have impacted your evolution as a photographer?
God, that is such a good question. It is amazing, and I think every photographer should have a drone in their toolkit. I teach people how to fly drones, and I'm FAA 107 part certified, and I flew commercially too for corporations. But I tell my students, think of the drone as a floating tripod, because you can capture images at perspectives that just aren't possible from ground level. And you don't even have to even go that high. Having a drone has really changed everything I do with my videos. The footage I can now capture is just, it's just unsurpassed from what I can do from the ground. So it was really a life-changing piece of gear. But it's just a camera in the air, but you're getting all these perspectives, It's just a matter of shooting straight on. You can ascend and descend and rolling shutters and and panning and everything is just so silky smooth. So it's big. The drone is a big addition to the toolkit.
Your portfolio suggests a wide range of travel from our local reservoir to national parks and other continents. Can you take us through a few stories about what stands out to you as the most beautiful, the most dangerous, and the most challenging, and why?
Man, God, so many places to see, so little time. Well, here in our backyard, I have a fond love for Yosemite. Yosemite National Park is one of my favorite national parks in our country. So from a beauty perspective, I always say to everybody that any American should visit Yosemite Park at least once in their lifetime. So there's a section called Tunnel View. It's very iconic. You come through the Wawana Tunnel as you're coming in. You're already sort of in the park, but you're not into the valley yet. But you go through the Wawana Tunnel. This is why they call it Tunnel View. When you come out the other side of the tunnel, you have this incredible scene of all this beautiful granite rock right down the valley. Yeah, you have, on this side you have El Capitan, which is a climbing mecca of the world, and that's a 3,000 granite monolith on the left side of the valley. Bridal Veil Falls, cathedral rocks, and then the beloved half dome straight down the valley. And you appreciate nature so much more from the beauty of Yosemite. If we're talking international, I would say that the beauty in New Zealand is unsurpassed. It's just unsurpassed. It's just an incredibly beautiful place. I hope to get back there again. Dangers? I'd put Iceland on the list for that. Iceland can be a very dangerous place, a very incredible adventure, a wonderful place to explore, but dangerous nonetheless. I've done a lot of ice caves in Iceland, and those are quite sketchy and dangerous, but my God, the opportunities and the experiences are just bar none. For challenges, I can think of challenges in Iceland, but I'm going to go with the Oregon coast. So I did an entire photography tour of the Oregon coast from the southern end up to the northern end. And some of these places in Oregon are very challenging, particularly places like Natural Bridges and Secret Beach. There's another place called the Devil's Punch Bowl. And these hikes are very sketchy because you're right on the crest of a cliff that just plunges into the sea. There's these incredible sea stacks, but one wrong step, you're done. It's very, very sketchy. And there are some locations that me and my buddy were wanting to photograph from, to look straight down through all these sea stacks. And in fact, this is in one of my Oregon videos on my YouTube channel, but when we had gotten to this location that we had researched, I just didn't have it in me to go out there. So you're sort of scrambling out to this little outcrop that is, about 100 feet down is the ocean, and there's nothing to hold on to. It's all sand and sort of slippery. And I'm thinking, I don't need that shot that bad. I think I'll skip this one. And my buddy Mark did as well. There was one other section down in a Secret Beach, they call it, where there's this sort of little outcropping that goes out. You have to climb down this tree, and then there's maybe a narrow section about this big. We ended up doing that one at a time, and I remember when I was going out, Mark Camp, my buddy, said to me, give me the keys to the car before you go out. Kind of give you an idea what we're dealing with. And I sort of scrambled out there. You can't even really stand up, and you're every moment you're just thinking, is this shot worth it? Is it really worth it?
Yeah.
Especially because I did have my drone with me.
I was just about to say, did you guys have the drone? Yeah.
Good thought. And we did have the drones. What I found in a lot of these areas, these sea stacks are havens for birds, migrating birds and birds living there. I was surprised to find just how aggressive these birds were to the drones. I flew my drone out towards the sea stacks, and I must have had about 50 seagulls just launch. And they're circling it was crazy. Brought the drone back in, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't fly the drone here, But I found Oregon to be, it's just an incredibly beautiful coastal area, but it's very challenging with some of the areas. And again, this is from a photography perspective. You don't have to go out to some of these locations, but you do often get the best shots from them,
Mm-hmm. All right, that's all I have for you for right now.
What was the hardest skill you had to master as you honed your voice as a landscape photographer?
Some of the more difficult parts, I would say, in photography, and to this day is a struggle, and I would think for many photographers, is the artistic aspect, the composition and the storytelling. And to this day, I continue to work on those two. Those are probably the most challenging. If you spend a little time knowing your gear, knowing the equipment you're using, you can learn that rather quickly. But the composition, the artistic aspect of it, that takes time. That takes a lot of doing, a lot of just finding yourself and connecting, and that's eventually what makes a better photographer.
Have you developed a distinct handheld style, sometimes paired with poetry before key shots? How did that approach originate, and in what ways has it evolved over time?
Another good question. As a landscape photographer, tripods are an essential part of our toolkit because you're often shooting at lower or slower shutter speeds. However, there is an advantageous viewpoint for shooting handheld. It's just a matter of knowing when to do it and when not based on the conditions. A lot of beginning landscape photographers will come onto a scene, they'll plant their tripod, mount their camera, and they may never move it again. They've never even really connected yet with the environment, and now they're framing all their shots right from, 5 feet up on their tripod, when the real shot may have been just 1.5 feet lower or 3.5 feet to the right. And by shooting handheld, you have more flexibility. You have these, you can make more compositions. You can move the camera around and start seeing all the elements in the scene shift, and you can frame better by doing so. But you got to know when to do it and when not. As far as the poetry, that's interesting. You must have picked that up on my YouTube channel. A lot of my photography adventures I do with a good friend of mine from Pennsylvania, Mark Houde. We've been shooting together for years, and I never knew he was a poet. And one day we're in Yosemite National Park. He says, "I got to tell you something. Nobody knows this about me." He says, I'm a wordsmith. And I was like, okay, and he says, and I've been writing a poem about our adventures. And then he shared these poems with me. He says, nobody's known this about me. And after reading his work, I'm like, God, Mark, you got such a talent. Like, why don't we use these in the videos? And so a lot of my travel adventure videos have Mark Houde's poems in them. And I mean, what better to have a poem that was written exclusively for our adventures, and I think that's kind of special. And so he was uncomfortable sharing this with the world. And I just think it's great that he opened up. And as a result, he's writing these poems all the time now and sharing it because, you have the talent. You can't just lock it up, You have something, you gotta share it. So, good little story about how he opened up with his poetry. Yeah.
It's a really good story. Looking at your earliest YouTube videos compared with the most recent videos, what do you see as the biggest area of growth or transformation in your content?
Well, I read somewhere that your first 50 videos are going to be awful. The key is you just got to press record and go. And I found while I was doing research with the whole notion of starting a YouTube channel, probably about 6 months of research, do I want to do this? I was surprised at how many people want to start a YouTube channel and they just can't upload that first video. They had started, they were doing the thing, they had a passion for it, they just couldn't upload it because they just didn't have the sense of security and and all those emotions we deal with as humans. Aside from that, I think the biggest transformation for me from when I first started making videos to now is I have focus and I have direction. I didn't really know which direction I was going to take the channel. I didn't know who my audience was. But I soon discovered that the travel videos were really the direction I wanted to take it, because the core of my YouTube channel is about inspiring people to spend more time outdoors in nature, less time on your screens, have that connection with nature, and it'll be life-changing. The whole process behind my videos is to just have people think and maybe get inspired to do such a thing. And that was probably the biggest transformation for me, was realizing that this is the direction I want to take the channel. And aside from that, other transformations would be I became a better filmmaker, because I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just pointing cameras. I didn't know much about filmmaking process at all. I've learned so much, and I continue to learn. I love to try and continue to grow and not remain static. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm slapping clips together, and it's just I wasn't seeing the big picture. You know what I mean? It was just really sort of combobulated, if you will.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yes.
Answering
Thank
those
you.
questions.
That was awesome.
Could you walk us through the gear you rely on most? Which piece has proven the most indispensable? And which would you call your most specialized or even fanciest?
Oh, that's a good one. So I've always shot with Nikon. I like the gear. I love the menu system. I have 4 mirrorless Nikon bodies: a Z30, Z50, a Z6, and a Z8. But I also have an assortment, or an arsenal, if you will, of smaller cameras like GoPros. I use the DJI version of the GoPro, the Action, I think they call it. I also have two DJI Osmo Pockets. These are, I don't know if you guys seen these or not, but these are really cool. They're literally pocket size. And it's the smallest gimbal in the world. And so you can be vlogging with these things, and you can be walking, and there's no camera shake. It's really, really pretty incredible. I use them a lot for like motion time lapses and stuff. I can just control it through my phone, so I can get on site. If I think there's going to be a banging sunrise, I'll set one of these up. I'll program it so that it's taken, maybe it takes, 300 images. And every time it takes a shot, it slowly moves on its own, and I can set those A and B points. So if I want it to pan across. We already talked about the drone, but if I had to think about specialized on a bigger scale, I would definitely say the drone is probably the most versatile camera I have. But we can go to the other side of the spectrum and talk about other little niche specialized tools. The loop comes to mind. L-U-O-P-E, loop. And basically, it's a magnifying glass with an eyepiece, and you put it over your LCD screen on your camera, and then you can look in there, and it sort of magnifies the image, and it just works wonderful for composition. And it works great when you have high contrast lighting, because as you do this, all the light is blocked from getting in, and you can really see the detail, make fine adjustments to your compositions. So that's a nice specialized tool that comes in handy. And then I might as well add filters. Even to this day, in this day and age in digital cameras, we're not really using colored filters anymore, but ND filters, and in particularly the polarizer filter, is a really nice specialized piece that, with today's software, we can change a lot in post, but there are some things you want to get right in the field, and a polarizer is one of those pieces where you pop it on the front of your lens and you turn the glass. There's two pieces of glass in there that are blocking out certain light coming in. And what they do is they can cut down on the haze, or if you have a glare or sheen over water and there's just blown out highlights, as you're turning this polarizer, you can actually cut out all of that glare, and you can see through the water. So you're making compositional choices, trying to tell a better story by using this polarizer. And those are things that you just can't do in post. So yeah, I guess that would probably cover, from one end to the other.
In your videos, such as the one where you find yourself in a cemetery on a cloudy day, because your original plans were foiled, you showed several shot compositions. This appears essential to the training aspect of your work. How is framing for a video different from composing for still photography?
Yeah, that's good. They're very similar. A framing perspective, whether I'm doing still photography or video, and it could be the basic concepts of the rule of thirds, or maybe you're using the golden spiral or something along those lines of, an artistic approach. But where I think video differs is in storytelling. So from a video perspective, the first thing I start thinking of is multiple shots from multiple focal lengths. So where am I? So I know I want a wide shot. I want to show the viewer this is where I'm at, and they can see everything. And of course, the wide shot, you're not going to see all the fine details. So I'll get the wide shot and maybe different angles, but now I'll work more on maybe a first-person view. So maybe I have a camera showing me operate the camera. So I'm bringing the viewer in so that, they can imagine them being where I am. Then I might have a shot with a tripod behind me, showing me and then the scene and my subject in front of me. And then, of course, maybe a profile. Sometimes I'll set up a tripod and camera on the left and grab that shot. The whole process of observation. So you're on the scene, you're telling a story, you're getting the footage, but maybe there's some nice blooming flowers that are really interesting. Well, that might be part of the story. So I might get a macro lens or something up close and get into the detail of those flowers. Great B-roll, by the way, So you're thinking A-roll, B-roll. And I think that's where the framing is different. I can frame up a shot, a still photography shot, and I can get exactly what I want. But with the video, we have options, right? How do we want to frame this cup? Well, I might want to have it come into from the right and then, pan through to the left. And you're not really doing that with still photography. Or I might want to do an ascend on it, right? Or, there's so many different ways, a straight down shot and then maybe turn it. And for me, it comes down to what works best to tell this story. How can I give the viewer, this experience and bring them into this area I'm at? And having all these different, B-roll, A-roll, and putting this together, to tell that bigger picture, that's where I feel the video is much more complicated than still shot.
Is there an average number of hours you invest in your weekly YouTube videos from idea to post-production? And which part of the process consumes the most time and why?
God, I probably spend too much time editing my videos. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to that. I would say the studio work, the video processing, because capturing the footage in the field is really not a big deal to me because I'm out there anyway. I want to be outdoors. I want to spend as much time as I can out. I'm out there shooting. What's another hour or two for me to capture all the footage I need? So I'm having a blast. I'm having fun. I'm doing what I love to do. I don't even look at that as extra work. And I love the video process. I love video editing. I really do. And I'm sure you guys here do as well. It's what you guys are doing. I mean, if I had to put a number on it, on an average video, it's probably anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, I would say, to really get, that's importing all the clips, choosing the music. To me, the music is very important. I don't just grab a song. It's got to be the right song. It's got to have the right tempo. It's got to have the right mood. Everything's got to be right about it. So it takes me some time to pick the right music for stuff and putting that all together and sound effects and everything else. Do it in pieces. So I may spend a couple hours at the computer and then I'll just let it sit. I'll walk away and then maybe come back a day or two later, fresh eyes, fresh ears, you're refreshed, and then just look at what you created so far, and then all of a sudden you start pulling things out. Nope, that's not going to work there. Let me fix that. I can make that better. I can do this, transitions. So I may do that 2 or 3 times on a video. Probably more time than I'd like to admit to, but you guys are video editing, so I'm sure you know what that's like,
That's all I have. It's been a blast.
Alrighty.
The rise of AI is reshaping creative industries everywhere. How do you think it impacts photography? And does it make you feel more hopeful, cautious, or both?
I think I lie on the cautious side. MIT did a study. They said people using AI to write their papers and stuff have a 47% reduction in brain activity. That's a lot.
That is.
All right. I'm like, well, where's this going, right? This can't be healthy for exercising your brain. So I think there's good and bad parts to AI. I think it's going to really hurt the photography industry in a big way. Maybe not so much the wedding photography industry. You can't really replace that, but a landscape photographer, I mean, people nowadays are just putting in a description of what the image they want, and they're just banging them out. They look incredible. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you may not even know the difference if it's real or fake. So there's challenges there. Corporations aren't going to be hiring photographers as much, but, you just sort of overcome and adapt. And there's always something new that comes from that. On the flip side of AI, we're now incorporating AI tools into our post-processing software. So Lightroom, I use the Adobe products. I also use the DxO products, Luminar Neo. They all have AI in them now, and these tools are pretty neat. I have to admit, as a landscape photographer, we think subtractively. So the idea when you're doing an artistic image is to remove distractions. Unlike a painter, they're adding stuff, they're adding in trees and what else they're doing. As a landscape photographer, we want to be removing those telephone lines, right? They're just not adding to the beauty. And sometimes you just can't do that. The composition is, you've got the composition. You just can't get the telephone pole out. If I zoom in to remove it or move over, now the composition is skewed. So what we would do is we would go in and remove them, and it was painstaking. Now, it's just a matter of whoop, click, boom, and it's gone, and it just puts it all in, and it fills in all the spots, It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool, and it's a time saver. But even at that point, a lot of people now are, instead of removing objects, they're embellishing them. So they're putting, a red barn in the middle of a mountain somewhere. They're actually adding pieces that aren't even in there, It drives me nuts. Changing skies and everything else. People are missing out on an experience about trying to get a writing camera. So I'm mixed on AI. I'm not against it. It's here to stay. We're either gonna move forward with it, or we're gonna fall behind. So, but it's got some cool stuff. I do have to say.
Interesting about AI is it can learn different styles. You could ask for one of your photos from New Zealand and ask it for a Vincent van Gogh painting.
That's perfect for that kind of stuff. It really is. You know, that's where you can say I want something that's more artistic, more like a painter from my own image, and then it can give you So yeah, there you go. You're thinking optimistic, which is good. You know, you're thinking about the good stuff of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mark, how do you navigate the tension between being structured and organized and your desire to remain natural and present in the moment?
So this is, I think, every photographer's, I don't want to say nightmare, but challenge is trying to wear two hats. All right. So trying to be technical and know your equipment, but at the same time trying to be artistic and creative when you're in the field. A lot of times, in some workshops I lead, I try and tell people to take some time before the workshop and just, if you have to sit down with the manual of your camera, whatever, just learn your camera. You don't have to learn everything in there. Just learn the stuff that's important to you. Especially in landscape, we're chasing light, right? The light comes and goes fast. We get on location before sunrise. When that sun starts coming, you don't have much time to get the best light. And I see it time and again where people are fumbling with their cameras and they just can't get focused, or they can't get the ISO changed or the aperture. They have these wonderful cameras and they don't know how to use them, and then they end up missing the shot. So you're giving yourself no time for creativity. So one aspect is to stay organized, and I guess that question could go several ways, right? We can talk about file structure and stuff like that, but I want to talk about being structured and finding time for creativity. And it really comes down to knowing your equipment to a degree. Therefore, now, once you're confident in that, now you have the time to be creative in the field. And you could wear two hats and do both effectively. And yeah, it's a matter of being organized and being confident in the stuff you're using, I would say.
Are there particular landscapes or locations you dream of photographing next?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, I definitely like to inspire people to live a life outdoors. You know, a life outdoors is a life well lived, and there's all these beautiful aspects to it, fresh air and sunlight and all these other things. As far as locations go, COVID first started, I had plenty of trips. I had a Switzerland trip planned. I had a Slovenia trip planned. I was going back to Iceland. I had a Norway trip planned. And we all have our COVID stories. We've all seen, what it's done. I eventually had given up on international travel for the time being and thought to myself, well, there's a lot to see right here in my own country, especially our national parks. So I've averted my attention for now anyway to just hitting more of the national parks here in our country, and then maybe international travel down the road.
Looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of your channel?
Yeah, so I really hope that I can inspire more people to really try and get outdoors more. And it could be as simple as taking a walk in a park, or taking a weekend, go on a camping trip. Just rough it for 2 days, and just spend time connecting in nature. It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing, and that's really the direction that I've been taking my channel. My channel is not about chasing, the next happening thing, the next boom or whatever. I don't do any clickbait or anything like that. It's really about authenticity, and hoping to inspire people just to slow down a little and just reconnect with the outdoors.
Mark, on behalf of Teen Tiger TV, I'd like to thank you for sharing your journey and insights with us today. Your work reminds us that photography is not only about capturing what we see, but about shaping how we experience the world around us. We look forward to seeing where your lens takes us next.
Thank you.